everyone. Guess who's back? It's Kamish back here with another team preview. And this time we got Chris from True North defending LOC slash Waffle champion. He will retire as the only, as the LOC retires, I should clarify, as the only two-time LOC champion. Definitely something to be proud of, because there's a lot of good owners in this league, and Chris at True North has demonstrated, obviously, continued success. He is the only one that has a perfect regular season in the LOC slash Waffle. Obviously, Deuce has just done it in the LOD last year to become her first. So I'm just going to get right into the preview here for Chris at True North. Again, awesome owner. Just a guy that, we love having as part of this league, not only because of how active he is, but he also generally communicates quite well. So here we go, Chris and Vlad Jr. crew. This is your preview, and I'm going to start out with the offense, and this is where I see you struggling. 15th. At some point, I don't know if it was a couple of years back or when it was, but you obviously decided to get into the rebuild. And when you do that, sometimes the rebuild takes longer if you don't hit on those draft picks, right? Like, I kind of consider it like card collecting, right? You can make somebody else pay the multi-thousands a box to get somebody they end up disappointed with, and then you can pick up that same card signed for $100, right? So it's hard. It's tough. I think the rebuilding thing looks like a lot of fun, but it's also risky. When we look at your quarterbacks, gave you second to last. So yesterday we saw cash in my Belichick's. I gave him dead last with Gino and Kyle Trask at the helm. I'm giving you dead last with Danny Dimes and Sam Howell at the helm. Why? Well, Kyle Trask, I think, carries even bigger question marks than Sam Howell, at least at this point in the offseason. Washington continues to reiterate that Sam Howell is the QB1 there until he loses the job. And then Danny Dimes actually lit it up. And let's face it, they've added some other pieces there on offense. Whether or not they're great remains to be seen. But Danny Dimes, I think, is still one of those guys. He just got paid. Sometimes when people get paid, do you notice they have a down year? I don't know. I see that a lot. Contract year, they do great. All of a sudden, down year comes when they've signed the big money. But we'll see if that happens to Danny Dimes. Again, I think NFC East there, they're going to have to play Philly twice a year and Dallas twice a year. That doesn't help either one of these clubs either. Can Brian Daboll do the magician act that he did last year with this team? It remains to be seen. And obviously, if Saquon goes down, that hurts that offense. Running backs, I ended up giving you 9th. You might be surprised at that rating. I'm actually kind of surprised reading it out, to be honest, looking at the group. Samaje Perine, I think, does start in Denver this year for the majority of the year. And here's the thing. If he does well, do you put Javonte Williams back in? I mean, ask yourself that question. Perine looked well in a relief role for Mixon last year. And he has a power run game to him that Mark Ingram style, the Sean Payton coached for years there in New Orleans. Your other running backs, Rashad White, supposedly might be the RB1. I'm hearing talk Zeke might sign there, which is obviously Tampa Bay. If they're looking at these other options, they're not convinced that Rashad White can be the RB1 there. Zach Charbonnet, again, I during the draft, I think I said that you were losing the draft. A big part of it is because I think you picked Zach Charbonnet too early. There was other running backs that have been more highly touted. But the thing is, maybe Charbonnet takes that job in Seattle. Who knows? I don't know, right? But based on what everyone's saying right now, that's what the talk is. And then Tank Bigsby, at first I was like, really? Bigsby? Like, there's got to be someone better than him. But the more I read up on it, he might have a role there in Jacksonville. Of course, with ETN coming off the Achilles injury, too. That's a pretty devastating injury. Usually, running backs really aren't the same from that. And then Ronald Jones right now is, I guess, in the running back room per committee possibly in Dallas, or at least getting some snaps. I gave you ninth. I'm actually surprised it's ninth. It just maybe talks about how bad some of the running rooms are out there. Wide receivers, I gave you 13. So this is where, maybe I accidentally flip-flopped these rankings here. But maybe I do have you as 13th. I apologize. Maybe I think I actually do have you at 13th for wide receivers, and here's why. Chris Olave, he looks like he might be good. He's part of that rebuild. You made a pick. He's your WR1 though, and as good as Olave could be, is he a superstar number one, right? Marquise Brown with D Hop there, he's just secondary. Rondale Moore, even more so, right? They brought in a guy like Michael Wilson in the draft. Zay Flowers, a lot of unknowns. And the unknowns, of course, on Baltimore is, can Lamar actually be featured in a passing offense? And that's what the new offensive coordinators come in to try to do here in Baltimore, signing him to the big money. But Zay Flowers is another rookie, another one of those rookies who's obviously turned out to be a bit of a disappointment here for you so far is Jameson Williams, suspended for 6, gambling. Kid hasn't even started his career yet. It's off to a rocky start. Aguilar, of course, is in Baltimore, isn't he? Pretty sure he got shipped there, and then Josh Downs maybe might have a bit of a role in Indy, but he is on the smaller side. It is 13th for wide receivers, 9th for running backs, and then a tight end gave you 12th. So 12th is still, in that third quarter of the league. Darren Waller, you might get a lot of the double dips with Danny Dimes, Darren Waller. That would be beneficial. Kate Otten, though, I think the position in Tampa Bay is wide open. So I don't think he's somebody that, you can rely on, to be honest. Jody Fortson, I think, could potentially have a role there, especially when Kelsey retires. And then Luke Musgrave, well, Green Bay, they need more weapons there. He could be the kind of guy that could maybe potentially get some volume in that Green Bay offense, but I still think it's 12th in the league. As much as I like Darren Waller, his story, I still think that he's going to face some challenges or restrictions in that Giants offense, but he could get a fair amount of touchdowns too, so that could be a benefit for you as well. Defense, this is where I have you a little bit better. So part of the rebuild here, maybe defense wins championships. That's what they say. And I got you 8th, so that puts you in the top half of the league. And I think you've done a fairly good job here on the defensive side of the ball. Looking at DLLBs, of course, this is where I see a lot of pass rushing potential points. Chase Young, again, bit of a disappointment trying to hit on those picks again. You just never know what you're getting. They didn't pick up his option, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with him. Cameron Jordan, he gets sacks, but he is getting up there in age. Judon, you obviously know him being a New England fan. Chris Jones is one of those DTs that can get you some sack points. Jordan Davis, of course, part of that Philly offense. Montez Sweat, you would hope maybe could get you some points as well. And then Drew Sanders coming in as a rookie. This is where, based on all the teams that we've seen so far, you're winning in the middle linebacker category or just the LB category. Here's what I see. Devin White. I believe he was the best linebacker in fantasy 2 years ago. Devin Lloyd, he's young, still lots of potential there. Michael Walker, I believe, is the starting middle in Atlanta. Alex Singleton, former Calgary Stampeder, got a lot of points for Denver there last year. Devin Bush will have a role while Jordan Brooks recovers from the ACL early on. Landon Roberts went to Pittsburgh in a favorable situation. Nick Bonito in round 2, and I think you nailed a couple of good linebacking prospects as well, and Nick and DeMarvion. So those guys were ranked high on a lot of the articles I've been reading, as well as, just maybe some guys that could start right away. So I think your linebackers, again, based out of all the teams we've seen so far, you're much more superior. You think about the team, I can't even remember who it was, but Eric Kendricks and a couple of DB LB hybrids. I mean, your LBs are way better than that. And then at DB here, I got Minka Fitzpatrick, Trayvon Diggs, Bobby McCann, Xavier McKinney, Jonathan Jones. So again, I see some solid safety talent. McKinney, of course, McCann's going to have a role now. Fitzpatrick, and then you maybe can rely on Trayvon Diggs for a big play or a big boom on a pick 6. So, I think for yourself, If I have to talk about your overall outlook, Chris, I think it's going to be a long year. I really do. I think No More and Zebras are the better teams in the Pandion. I see right now you do have two open roster spots, so clearly you're leaving them open for picking up a guy. I hope you understand and like the daily waivers. I am enjoying that. It's a very fair process. Looking at your draft pick outlook, two firsts for next year and a good year to have them yourself. I think maybe you actually want to have a down year this year with Caleb Williams as well as Marvin Harrison. Those are the two darlings of next year's draft, just based on today. Anything can happen, of course. And then you have No More's first. Then you have a second, third, and two fourths again, having No More's fourth. So you do have some draft capital to work with to continue with this rebuild. I'm sure for you, you would like to see this rebuild happen a little bit quicker, possibly. But that's the thing about rebuilding. You got to be patient typically. I think in real football, it's more like a 5-year plan. Anyways, Chris, it's an absolute pleasure to have you in the league, as always, and appreciate your commitment and good luck this year.